They could strip a field of corn faster than 10 men with husking hooks, and they could take your arm in less time than it takes to blink. These were the engineering marvels of their age, clattering, chain-driven beasts that fed families and built the American Corn Belt. But every single one hid a dark secret deep in its greasy guts. Today, 10 legendary corn pickers that were absolutely brilliant and very nearly impossible to keep running. Let's dig in. Number 10. The Wood Brothers Pull Type. Before the giants swallowed the market, dozens of scrappy short-line companies built corn pickers, and Wood Brothers was one of the early pioneers of the pull-type picker, a machine that trailed behind the tractor, drank power off the PTO shaft, and snapped ears from standing stalks as you rolled through the field. The brilliance of the Wood Brothers design was its simplicity and its brute toughness. A farmer with a Farmall H or M and a level, dry field could pick 100 bushels a load with a machine that cost a fraction of a self-propelled harvester. Many farmers even converted them into snappers by pulling the husking bed off entirely, leaving just the snapping rolls to yank the ears free. Perfect for corn headed straight to the hog lot or the silage crib. But here's the problem. The Wood Brothers picker was a cathedral of chains, sprockets, and open gears, and almost none of it was sealed. Every gathering chain, every roll, every idler had to be oiled and adjusted by hand, and when a chain stretched or a sprocket wore, you were often machining or fabricating the replacement yourself. As a short-line brand that faded when the industry consolidated, spare parts dried up fast. Restore one today, and you'll spend more time hunting a single obsolete casting than you'll ever spend picking corn. And like every picker on this list, it was mercilessly unforgiving. The snapping rolls didn't care whether they were pulling in a corn stalk or a coat sleeve. It was a machine that demanded you respect it every single second the PTO was spinning, because it would never respect you. Number 9. The Allis-Chalmers Mounted Picker. Allis-Chalmers built a genuinely clever mounted picker, usually seen bolted onto a WD, WD-45 or a D-Series tractor, and it did something most of its rivals couldn't. It picked clean. That's because Allis leaned on stripper plates instead of relying only on aggressive snapping rolls to tear the ear off the stalk. Here's why that mattered. On most pickers, the ear gets dragged across spinning steel snapping rolls, and in the process, the rolls shell kernels right off the cob. That shelled corn falls to the ground and is lost. The Allis-Chalmers design was famous for leaving almost no shelled corn on the field. In an era when a good field yielded only 20 to 30 bushels an acre, saving every kernel was real money. So what was the catch? Two things. First, it was slow. The gentler stripper plate action meant you crawled through the field at a walking pace, and in a business where the whole crop had to come off before winter locked the ground, speed was survival. Second, that gentle approach left more husk and stalk trash mixed in with the ears, which meant constant fiddling with the husking bed to keep it flowing. And then there was the universal curse of every mounted picker. As farm collectors' equipment historians have described it, mounting one of these units to a tractor could eat a full day or more of labor. The tractor was then out of commission for every other job, and the machine had to be stored indoors or it would rust into scrap. During the season, its grease zerks, chains, and sprockets demanded constant care, and its low clearance made it treacherous in the mud that so often defined a late corn harvest. Brilliant on kernels saved, brutal on your time. Number 8. The Case Twin Elevator Mounted Picker. Case brought its own muscle to the corn picker wars, and the twin elevator mounted design was, on paper, a productivity machine. Two elevators feeding the husking bed meant a serious flow of ears, and mounted on a big case tractor it could move corn in a hurry. But the case picker earned a reputation for two very specific headaches. The first was weight. These machines were heavy enough that farmers reported watching the tractor's rear axles physically bow under the load. In muddy conditions, that stress found the weak point. Broken axles were a known failure, with more than one farmer snapping an axle clean under a loaded picker when the tractor bogged down. That's not a maintenance quirk. That's the picker literally destroying the machine it rode on. The second headache was the husk. Some case units developed a reputation for picking what old-timers called shucky corn, ears that came out of the machine still wrapped in husk. Farmers who ran them said you could end up picking husks off the ears by hand at the crib, or endlessly adjusting the husking rolls trying to chase a clean result that the machine didn't want to give. The engineering was ambitious, and when everything was dialed in on dry, level ground, a case picker moved corn beautifully. But it lived right at the edge of what the tractor underneath it could physically survive, and keeping it fed, adjusted, and unjammed was a full-time job. Add in the always present danger of the husking and snapping rolls, and you had a machine that rewarded the meticulous and punished everyone else. Number 7. The Oliver Mounted Picker. Oliver built corn pickers out of the same heavy, over-engineered iron that made its tractors famous, and farmers who ran them respected them. The Oliver Mounted Picker, seen on machines like the Oliver 70 and later row crop models, was durable, rebuildable, and capable, a real workhorse of the 1940s. But the Oliver Picker also carries one of the most sobering true stories in all of corn harvest history, and it captures exactly why these machines were so dangerous to maintain. In post-war Kansas, a farmer named Ward Henry got his hand caught in the rollers of his Oliver corn picker. The rolls didn't sever his fingers, instead they crushed the nerves and ligaments so badly that, with antibiotics scarce in that rural corner of the country, the attending doctor made the call while Henry was sedated and amputated the hand entirely. 10 days later, Ward was back in the field harvesting grain with that very same Oliver picker. That's the world these machines were built for. The brilliance of the Oliver was its build quality. The curse was that same quality demanded constant hands-on service. Grease points everywhere, chains to tension, husking rolls to adjust, and every one of those service points sat inches from mechanisms that could pull a man in faster than he could react. The Oliver didn't fail often, but when a farmer reached in to keep it running, it was every bit as merciless as the cheapest machine on this list. Number 6. The Ford 601-602 Mounted Picker. Ask the old hands which mounted picker was actually the best, and a surprising number will point to the Ford 601 and 602. The reason is a genuinely smart piece of engineering. Ford angled its snapping rolls. On most pickers, the snapping rolls run flat, so the ear gets dragged up the length of the spinning rolls, and along the way, the roll shell kernels right off the cob, wasting grain. Ford tilted the rolls so that the instant an ear was snapped from the stalk, it dropped away onto the elevator and up to the husking bed before the rolls could chew it up. Less butt shelling, less waste, cleaner corn. It was one of those "why didn't everyone do this" ideas. Ford even offered versions that could pick and shell in one pass. On its face, this was one of the most refined pickers of its generation. So why is it on a list of maintenance nightmares? Because it was still a mounted picker, and it inherited every sin of the breed. Hooking it up was a genuine chore. Farmers described the mounting process as a pain that tied the tractor up for the entire picking season, unavailable for anything else. Its clearance was low, so a wet fall turned a good day into a mud-bound disaster, and its husking bed of counter-rotating rubber rolls was the same lethal ringer found on every machine here. The kind that, as safety investigators documented, could drag a person's hand into the gap between two rollers in about 0.15 of a second, roughly twice as fast as a healthy person can even react. Brilliant snapping geometry, same deadly heart. Number 5. The John Deere number 300 pull type. By the time John Deere rolled out its number 300 pull type picker, the company had learned from a generation of dirty picking machines. The 300 could run the same style of head used on Deere's 40 series corn heads, with stripper plates that snapped the ear cleanly and cut down on the shelling and cob splitting that plagued roll-only pickers. This was the picker as a mature, refined tool. Pulled behind a good tractor, fed by a proper husking bed, it did clean, efficient work, a far cry from the crude machines of the 1930s. For a livestock farmer picking ear corn to grind into cattle feed, a well-set-up Deere pull type was close to ideal, but refinement came at the cost of complexity. Every added stripper plate, every extra husking roll pair, every gathering chain was one more wear point to grease, adjust, and eventually replace. These machines had to be shedded, left out in the weather over a Midwestern winter, and the chains would seize and the sheet metal would rot. And the husking bed, for all its cleaning ability. Safety researchers found that the single most common corn picker accident scenario across decades was heartbreakingly consistent. The rolls plug up, the operator reaches in to clear the jam without shutting the machine off, and the rolls suddenly free and yank everything forward, stalks, weeds, and hands, at nearly 12 feet per second. The better the picker worked, the more tempting it was to keep it running while you cleared it, and that temptation is what filled the hospitals. Number 4. The International Harvester 2M and 2MH. International Harvester was the undisputed heavyweight of corn picking. Over its long run, the company built roughly 50 different corn picker models between 1904 and 1974, plus special versions for sweet corn and popcorn. The two-row mounted 2M and 2MH were the machines that put a two-row harvest on a single farmall, and in the 1950s and 60s that was a staggering leap in productivity. Picture it, a farmall M or a super M, with the picker straddling the hood, snouts diving into 2 rows of corn at once, the husking bed roaring behind the operator. On a good day, 1 person and 1 tractor did the work that once took a whole crew of hand huskers. That was the brilliance, sheer, field-eating capacity. Now the nightmare. The 2MH was built as 2 nearly independent snapping and husking units joined only by the front sheet metal and a few alignment brackets. That made the machine a monster to assemble, mount, and store. Farmers who owned them describe a demounted 2MH as an accident waiting to happen, each heavy unit needing its own level, elevated spot just to sit safely, the whole thing essentially a giant kit that had to be reassembled onto the tractor. Mounting was a multi-day ordeal. The tractor was dedicated to picking for the entire fall, and the machine had to be babied through constant greasing and chain adjustment. It was the most capable picker most farmers had ever seen, and one of the most punishing to actually live with. Number 3. The New Idea 320-324. Pull type. If any brand owned the pull type corn picker, it was New Idea out of Coldwater, Ohio. In much of the Corn Belt, New Idea was simply the default. The picker so many farmers trusted that hobbyists today can still find them running when every other brand has gone to the scrapyard. The 1-row 323 and 2-row 324 were the machines that carried the brand's reputation for a clean, well-designed husking bed that stripped ears cleaner than most competitors. The company had staying power to match. New Idea was owned by Avico from the mid-1940s, bought by White in 1984, and absorbed by AGCO in 1993 before the historic Coldwater plant finally closed in 1999. That's half a century of continuous picker building, and it's why parts and knowledge for these machines survive better than almost anything else here. But do not mistake reliability for safety. The New Idea's husking bed, that beautifully effective set of counter-rotating rubber rolls, is one of the most documented maimers of hands in American agriculture. In one recent legal case, a young man harvesting alongside his father tripped and fell toward a New Idea 323, threw out his hand to catch himself, and had it pulled into the exposed husking rolls, resulting in degloving, crushing trauma, 9 surgeries, and eventually the amputation of a finger. A picker so good farmers kept it for 50 years is also a picker that could destroy a hand in an instant. Keeping one alive meant respecting the very thing that made it work. Number 2. The Minneapolis-Moline Uni-System. This one was decades ahead of its time. Minneapolis-Moline introduced the Uni-System concept around 1950, a single self-propelled power unit with a driver's seat and engine that could accept completely different harvesting attachments. One machine could be a corn picker, a picker sheller, a combine, or a forage chopper just by swapping the front unit. The design later moved to New Idea, which built the famous 700 and 800 series Uni harvesters into the modern era. The genius is obvious. A livestock farmer could shell corn in the field, something almost no one else could do at the time. Then convert the same machine to chop silage or combine beans. It was modular, self-propelled, harvesting a full generation before the industry caught up. Seed corn companies loved them so much that a handful were still running Unis for cob corn decades later. But that versatility was a maintenance and reliability minefield. Swapping attachments took 2 experienced people about an hour of hard work every time. The early gas engines were badly underpowered. Put a sheller unit on a hill pulling a loaded wagon, and that little engine simply couldn't hack it. Ground clearance was famously poor, a serious problem since seed corn has to be picked on schedule, mud or no mud. And the Unis had a genuinely alarming habit of catching fire, sometimes because an operator forgot to release the parking brake, letting trash pack around the hot brake housing until it ignited and dropped burning debris into the field. A brilliant idea. A temperamental, thirsty, fire-prone machine to actually own. Number 1. The John Deere number 227. And here it is. Maybe the most iconic mounted corn picker ever built, and a machine that defined the American corn harvest for a decade. The John Deere bolted onto a 2-cylinder Johnny Papa, a Model A, a 60, a 630. The 2-row 227 is the image that lives in the memory of every farm kid of the 1950s and 60s. The sound of that 2-cylinder engine lugging through standing corn, the picker snouts parting the rows, wagon after wagon filling with golden ears. It was rugged, it was everywhere, and paired with Deere's beloved letter and numbered series tractors, it was the beating heart of the Corn Belt harvest. That is the brilliant, now the almost impossible. Farmers who lived with the 227 will tell you, without exaggeration, that mounting it each fall could take days. You had to physically relocate the tractor's rear wheels to widen the stance, jack the tractor, wrestle the axle collars loose, slide the heavy wheels, then bolt on the mounts, radiator screens, elevator, and the picker itself, often working an hour or two a night around milking and chores, stretched across the better part of a week. Once it was on, the tractor was dedicated to picking for the whole season. And for all that labor, the 227's husking bed was frequently criticized as simply too small, so it picked dirty, leaving husk and trash mixed with the ears that had to be cleaned up later. So there's the cruel irony of the corn picker era. These machines fed a nation and built the modern corn belt, yet corn pickers were by the numbers among the most dangerous machines ever put in a farmer's hands. One long-running injury study found that roughly 58% of corn picker accident victims were left with serious permanent disabilities, the highest rate of any type of farm accident studied. They were brilliant, they were beloved, and every fall they demanded to be assembled, greased, adjusted, unjammed, and respected, because the moment you stopped respecting them, they'd remind you exactly what those rollers were for. That's our 10. If you ran one of these, or your dad or grandpa did, drop the model in the comments and tell us which one you'd bring back and which one you'd never touch again.